Sarah better watch out.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Meet Mickie Knuckles. Say that 5 times back. She has been a professional wrestler for nearly 21 years to the day of this video coming out, and has wrestled all over the independents, primarily in promotions such as Chikara, Combat Zone Wrestling, IWA Mid-South, and many others. During the peak of her pro wrestling success, she suffered a terrifying injury, which I consider to be one of the most gruesome in the history of the sport, and that is what we are going to be discussing today. If you do enjoy this video and you do want to see more videos about random stuff that comes to mind in regards to pro wrestling, be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. I appreciate you sticking with this video, as it is a pretty insane first video to post. And with that being said, let's get right into it. As I mentioned before, Mickie Knuckles has been wrestling for over 20 years in various independent promotions, the main one being IWA Mid-South. IWA Mid-South was a promotion that specialized in deathmatch wrestling, and at one point was considered the most violent wrestling promotion across all the US some. And in terms of how violent matches were over there, I don't think I can blame people for coming to that conclusion. The promotion was created by wrestler Ian Rotten, and if you haven't heard about him, it's probably because he hasn't done a whole hell of a lot in terms of staying relevant in the mainstream pro wrestling scene. You might have heard about his time in Extreme Championship Wrestling, where he wrestled consistently for about 2 years and then went on to create this very promotion. Stories have been shared about how much of an asshole Ian Rotten is for decades, and I'll let you do your own research on the guy if you want to hear some of the uplifting stories that have been told about him. But I don't really feel like making a 40-minute long video talking about some fucking loser exclusively. IWA Mid-South for a period of time had a school that trained wrestlers, and Knuckles had been trained at that school and was actually the last ever trainee for the school. One of the trainers was Chris Hero, and if you're not really that familiar with his extensive catalog of matches throughout the independents, 1, you're missing out, and 2, you may remember him for his time in WWE as Cassius Ohno. From what I understand, Rotten also had a hand in training her, but that's not the only place he had his hand, because they supposedly had an affair in the 2000s. In 2008, Mickie's grind on the independents paid off as she signed a deal to work with TNA Wrestling, and at this time, TNA was the biggest promotion in North America outside of WWE. In TNA, she worked 3 matches total, 2 on their weekly television show that she won, and 1 on their Slammiversary pay-per-view that they lost. During her time with the company, she adopted the ring name Moose. And no, there is no correlation to the wrestler currently known as Moose, who has been working with TNA for the last 8 years. I wonder if her TNA contract wasn't paying her a crazy amount, or if she just did it for the love of the game, because she would still work independent dates for IWA Mid-South and other promotions. And that is what leads us to the main focus of this video. On July 6, 2008, Mickie Knuckles would face Sarah Del Rey, a very experienced wrestler on the independents who is now working for WB as a trainer, in a 30-minute Iron Man match for IWA Mid-South. The match would only last 1/3 of its intended length and ended in a no contest due to what I'm about to show you. Before I do, I just want to give you a very quick warning. I have been a pro wrestling fan ever since I was 7 years old. I've seen a ton of different styles of wrestling and a ton of different injuries. I just saw this for the first time about 4 days ago, and without any hyperbole, this is the worst leg break in any sport that I've personally ever seen. And it's one of the worst injuries I've ever seen as well. If you don't want to see this, I advise looking away from the video or just skip ahead about 45 seconds, because if you're anything like me, this will fuck you up.
Sarah better watch out. And Mickie connects, but that landing really could have blown out her knee.
Is fucked.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
Yeah. As you can see in the video, Mickie was either going for an elevated Thez press or a crossbody and chickened out midway through. I think she was attempting the latter and backed out of the crossbody in midair, landing right on her feet, and for a second I thought to myself it didn't look that bad, because I was expecting to see her ankle snap in half like Sid Vicious in WCW, but the second time I watched it, I realized her leg was going in a direction that a leg should never go. It reminded me of those videos online where you'll see someone use a tender piece of meat falling off the bone to describe an injury to an NBA player or something. You can hear Mickie even apologizing to a distraught Ian Rotten for getting injured, because Ian told Mickie she shouldn't even be in this match because he didn't want her risking injury to destroy her chances with TNA. Why he even allowed this match to happen in the first place if he felt this way, considering he owns and books the fucking promotion, is beyond me.
Baby, please don't tell me this. Please don't. Oh, God. I'm so sorry.
Luckily for her, TNA left the spot on their roster for her despite the injury initially, but unfortunately after the first injury was unsuccessful and she needed yet another, this is when TNA decided to release her. Personally, I feel two different ways about this. One part of me feels genuine sympathy for her because this is such a devastating injury to suffer, and it was at the absolute worst time possible. Regardless of how you feel about her as a person or as a wrestler, she was just breaking out onto a nationally televised wrestling show, and it got snatched away from her in a match in front of maybe 40 people in a spot that didn't need to happen or shouldn't have happened. The other part of me feels like this was karma to an extent for an incident that happened 2.5 weeks prior during IWA Mid-South's Queen of the Deathmatch tournament. Levy was an untrained wrestler from North Carolina who has expressed interest in wrestling in IWA Mid-South throughout multiple various messaging boards online. Ian Rotten personally flew the guy out on his own dime to fuck with the guy. Him and Mickie had a match where Mickie was supposed to squash him, and he tried to get some of his own shit in, shout out to Brian Cage, and was even no-selling some moves. Eventually, Mickie picked up the win and continued to beat the absolute shit out of him. I'm not going to show the whole beatdown here because I don't need to go that crazy, but it's on YouTube if you would like to see it. It wasn't just her, however, as fellow wrestlers Devin Moore and Tank would join in on the fun, and Ian joining in, and even Ian's 12-year-old son, who would later go on to wrestle as JC Rotten, would join in on beating this poor dude down. The reason? He had left a welt on Mickey's forehead, and Ian felt like this would screw up Mickey's opportunity with TNA and felt it was necessary to take it out on him. My question is, why would you book someone who you don't want to get injured in a fucking deathmatch tournament? This is one of the incredible stories that exists about Ian Rotten that you can hear or read about online. And you can argue that while this isn't the first incident involving him, it might not even be the worst in the grand scheme of things. It's just another example of Ian Rotten being an overall piece of shit and a complete fucking idiot for having absolutely no common sense or awareness whatsoever. For those wondering, Mickie does still wrestle to this day. In fact, she came back about less than 3 months after the injury and wrestled an attack match. She never made it back to national television after losing her TNA contract, but she did wrestle for TNA again in 2016, albeit in a deathmatch. Outside of that, she wrestled for OVW throughout 2011 and won their women's title 3 times for whatever that's worth. But yeah, this was the worst broken leg I have ever seen, but what do you guys think of this video? I've been making videos for years, but this is my first attempt at covering wrestling, so I'm very eager to read feedback, both positive and negative. Feel free to let me know in the comments, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you did enjoy this video, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.